I am Tony Sebastian Ukpo. I am a writer-director from Nigeria, currently based in London, England. Well, one of my favorite directors is Jean-Luc Godard, and the reason being that his films have a certain energy about them, and it's actually kind of ironic in a way to use it because his films can tend to be quite slow and quite meaningless to people who don't really understand what's going on, but it's kind of infused with an ideal that people don't really make films with these days. He really has an idea of cinema, and cinema as art, cinema as a platform for making your voice heard, for expressing your feelings and opinions about things, and for just kind of eschewing a certain idea of what that period in society is at that point. And his films weren't always like this, and it's kind of evolved into this very thoughtful, more introspective kind of film. But for me, it's always visually interesting, and it's always moving in a way that even if you don't understand the greater story or don't understand the hidden concepts and all that kind of stuff, there's a certain appreciation that I have for his work. And it's the same thing for people like Takeshi Kitano, who's another favorite of mine, whose films are very thoughtful, yet very powerful and graphic. Well, certainly his earlier work, all the Yakuza films and stuff. And he also evolved into a sort of slower, more experimental phase, which people didn't really like, but I really appreciated because it shows a diversity in his work. I think, because I've kind of dabbled in acting myself as well, and I have a huge respect for actors. But the thing is, every actor is different, so working with everyone is going to be different anyway. It's the same with crew as well. And if you don't know how to treat a particular person, then there's no way it's going to work for your film, regardless of how how good of a director you are, or how good of an actor they are, because they can just take the piss, to put it gently. And you have people like, you can get the Brandos who can say, oh, I'm not going to wear any trousers, so shoot me from here up because, I'm Brando and you can't do shit about it. And if you don't know how to deal with that, then there's no way the film is going to really progress the way it needs to. And I think being a director is very much about being a people person. And if you don't know how to deal with those situations, then you honestly don't really have any business working with actors. There's certain directors who are a lot more technical, and so they can get away with it because they're those people. And if
we don't name names,
yeah, we don't name names. But I mean, well, obviously there's famous stories about people like Ridley Scott and how they were not very much actors people, certainly when they first started out. And it's very much about the technicalities and the camera moves and all the technology of it and stuff, and creating the world. And the actors are good enough, or he hires good enough actors to do their jobs without him having to do much. And I think it's not lazy directing, but it's a particular style, and it's not kind of the way I do it, because I'm coming from a writer's perspective as well. So I like to try and talk the actors through the script and the characters in such a way that once we actually get onto set, they understand exactly what it is I'm trying to do. So there's not so much back and forth, oh, let's try it like this, or oh, what about this, or oh, this character is about this, I'm trying to explain it to you this way, because they should intrinsically know all that as we get there. And you just have to trust them, because it's all about trust as well, because if you don't trust the actors to do their jobs, then you might as well just make the film yourself with, stick puppets or whatever it is. Now, I have a fairly substantial DVD collection that I've kind of gathered over the years and stuff, and lots of tapes and things like that. And it's a very diverse range of films. For instance, you can go from the classic Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator, all the way to Jim Jarmusch's Broken Flowers with Bill Murray, all the way to perhaps the most diverse the greatest distance from Predator you could ever get. Film Socialisme, which is Jean-Luc Godard's latest film, which is miles away from what the 80s audience would have appreciated watching Predator. And Predator, I think, is amazing because of the kind of film it is and the period in which it was made. Not only is the idea sound and long-lasting, it was actually very well acted for a sort of muscle-bound, action-packed, Schwarzenegger beef fest, and it still has some resonance today with the kinds of films that are being made. And I think you just can't really get better than this. Because at that time, this shows that you can do mainstream and make it not only cool and accessible, but artistically interesting in terms of the way the creatures created and the shots and the character developments, and there is no real character development, but the story progression and that sort of thing. I think it's just really entertaining. I mean, this for me is what real entertainment is, as opposed to just cheap Hollywood fare. This, I find, is probably one of the funniest films you'll ever watch. And not in a sort of haha Jim Carrey kind of funny way or whatever, but it's just very intelligent. And I think the greatest comedy is also probably the most moving drama as well. And probably the end sequence of this film is one of the saddest things that you would ever see, and it makes you wonder why you even laughed at the whole thing in the first place. And yet you'll still go back and you'll still laugh because it's Bill Murray and it's Jim Jarmusch, and the way the film is shot and the actors and the way they all put it together is just amazing. And this is not even typical Jarmusch, well, compared to some of his earlier works and stuff, but then again, he's evolving all the time. And Film Socialisme is no subtitles, political commentary on socialism. And the film, actually, I have no idea what his actual proper motives are. I mean, I'm not a very big political person, but I think it's beautifully shot, all on video as well. And just the scenes and the imagery is so stunning and really strikingly fresh, certainly in today's age of avatars and big 3G CG epics and stuff like that, which are all fun as well, but then it's really nice to have a space for films like this. And it's not necessarily the Godard film I would recommend to everyone, but I think it's certainly nice if people can appreciate these kinds of films, because it's like literature. You watch it or you read certain books, and it's just something that's good for you to see, even if you're not necessarily interested in it. Now, I've had a long love-hate relationship with Nollywood, and the reason being, I originally felt that there was no real care taken with the storylines and no real urge to do something different. But when I think about it in retrospect, I think of Nollywood more as a genre and as a certain kind of film that comes out of there. I think Nigerians really do specialize in a certain kind of melodrama, and the stories really do have a way of sucking you in, regardless of the sucky video quality and all that kind of stuff. And yes, people are making more efforts today to do stuff, but I would still like to see the point where we go back to series like this. Things Fall Apart was from a seminal Nigerian novel. It's an adaptation, it's classic African literature, and if my memory does not deceive me, it was shot on film, and there was a lot of care taken to actually put this production together. I mean, this is 10 CDs, like 13 hours of classic, well-made film.